Coffee this morning. This is our segment where we talk to newsmakers and experts on issues that matter to us. We will discuss, okay, well, there's a thing, the series of earthquakes that hit several areas across the globe over the weekend. And to help us make a sense of this natural phenomenon, we're joined this morning by Dr. Mario Aurelio. Doc, good morning. Thanks for visiting.
Good morning, Karen.
Okay, Dr. Aurelio is an associate professor of the National Institute for Geological Sciences at the University of the Philippines in Diliman. And for our viewers, you can join our discussion. Send us your thoughts, questions through Twitter and Facebook. Okay, Doc Aurelio, first and foremost, there have been 52 tsunami warnings in different nations and territories worldwide. How bad could the effect be after the 8.8 quake in Chile?
Yes, Karen, first of all, I think I'd better show this animation because it explains very well how the waves traveled through the Pacific Ocean right after the earthquake.
Okay.
So what you're looking at here is a...
Where is Chile there?
Chile is right on the lowermost right corner.
Okay.
And then the waves you see there, it's a simulation. By the way, I have to credit the NOAA in Seattle, which is the Tsunami Center for Research.
Okay.
That you see here, the waves propagating towards the west, meaning to our left, into the entire Pacific Ocean. And those 52 countries you've been mentioning would be those countries that are around the Pacific and Ocean, and even beyond that, meaning into the Antarctic and south of Australia, and so on. So you see that the waves indeed traveled that far. That's about, from Chile to the Philippines, it's about 16,000 kilometers in distance.
And it can travel that far?
Yes.
16,000 kilometers?
16,000 kilometers. Just like traveling by plane, you know, from the Philippines to the west coast in the U.S., and even farther than that. But fortunately, and this is what is one good thing about the tsunami, although it was a very high magnitude earthquake, when the waves arrived in the western part of the Pacific, meaning the Philippines, Japan, the waves have already been decreased in terms of their amplitude, what we call the amplitude, the height. So that, in fact, by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon yesterday, FIVOLCS already lifted the warning on tsunami in the eastern coasts of the Philippines.
Can you actually predict where the tsunami will hit if you follow the pattern of the wave movement?
Yes, I think this is one perhaps good advance in tsunami studies, that as you see here in this simulation, we can approximately see where the big waves are going, in which direction and at what time they will arrive.
I see. Okay. Now, nobody can predict an earthquake.
Right.
You know, that's been clarified over and over again.
Yes.
But Chile experienced an 8.8. Is there any way to at least study if there will be aftershocks in areas nearby, in the same fault line?
Well, definitely in Chile, the magnitude 8.8 earthquake will still generate aftershocks. In fact, if you go through if you visit the websites of many earthquake research institutes, you would see that even up to today, there are still aftershocks. Of course, the magnitudes have decreased significantly, and therefore, if, for example, we are worried about the tsunami, then the tsunami risks would also be lower by then.
But what makes this different? This is an 8.8 magnitude quake.
Yes.
And to think in Phuket, Thailand, the tsunami literally swallowed the whole resort and most of the islands then. And in Bali, in Aceh, there was also a major tsunami there.
Yes.
But the quake wasn't 8.8. It wasn't that strong.
No, but here, I'll better use this one because that's the earthquake in Aceh in 2004.
Yeah.
So it's the same simulation. You see the colors, red would be the descending waves, and then the blue would be the rising waves. And the earthquake occurred right on the northwestern coast of the major island of Indonesia. And you see Phuket there, marked to the right.
Yeah.
And you see the waves in blue, those are the bigger waves. So they arrived immediately in a few minutes, about 20-30 minutes after the earthquake, and that's one of the reasons why Phuket was one of the greatly devastated areas in Thailand then.
Okay, is it much difficult now given the fact that we have other factors like climate change?
Well, climate change and earthquakes, I really haven't heard really of definitive studies that relate the two phenomena together. but perhaps there's some link between them.
Okay, but when was the last time that the Philippines really experienced a major tsunami? I mean, I was very surprised that in Aurora, no, it turns out 1735. There was actually a major tsunami where the Angara family was actually saved, only 5 families in the area. Was that the only one we've had?
No, in the Philippines, the most recent big tsunami was in Cotabato. That's to the south of Mindanao.
Okay.
That was in, I think, 1973. And there were thousands of deaths then. And it was due to this movement of what is called as the Cotabato Trench that you see to the south here. A similar structure as that of which that caused the Chile earthquake. It's also a subduction zone, what we call a subduction.
Can we actually protect?
So, for instance, in the Chile earthquake, I think the maximum height that was observed onshore was about 2.5 meters. So that's about twice the height of a person. In other words, you simply have to go to a place where it is higher than that height.
Correct.
And of course, you have to have a leeway beyond that because the waves come swooping down from the shores with a certain velocity, and therefore it's better to rise up to higher.
So
elevation.
in terms of construction and infrastructure, you think this would make a big difference? Because I went to Villa Fushi, it's one of the islands in the Maldives with the UN disaster response team just a few months ago, and that island was practically wiped out at one point, and when they rebuilt it, they now put everyone on higher ground.
Right.
Just what you said, 3 meters above sea level.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So we can do that?
Yes.
Do you think that's something
Precisely,
we
it's
can do?
just a matter of really designing properly, say, a community, a resort, or whatever is near the shore, in order to avoid that distance. And the government, through FIVOLS, for instance, is doing a lot of effort in informing the public about these necessary things that you have to adopt in order to make your place safe.
But what about a seawall? Does a seawall actually, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Does it serve a purpose when it's a tsunami or not really?
Generally, a seawall is built for regular waves, meaning to control the waves from coming in and out, especially if you have a port or a yacht area. But for tsunami, I think the design will have to be different.
Okay.
Meaning,
so, Dr. Aurelio, given the quake in Chile, which surprised everyone and shocked the world at 8.8, Haiti was... What was the magnitude?
7 magnitude. 7.0, 7.2.
7 was already very strong.
Yes.
8.8 would be historically...
in the Philippines, you mean?
Globally.
Well,
is
no.
8.8 so far?
8.8 is not the strongest. It's 9.5. Instrumentally recorded, meaning when the instruments were invented, that was the time when we were able to record instrumentally. And it was in Chile, about 200 kilometers north of where it happened now, that a 9.5 earthquake took place. So that's the record so far of instrumentally recorded earthquakes.
But is there some explanation why we are experiencing more earthquakes now with a stronger magnitude? I mean, coming from Haiti and now Chile.
Yes, I think, well, again, the Earth is dynamic, so the plates are moving. The outer crust of the Earth is very dynamic, and therefore we should be expecting earthquakes every now and then. As to the magnitudes, well, sometimes they would be very strong, like what happened in a span of 3 weeks, I guess, or just over that. But maybe it will come down a little bit later.
All right, very briefly before we end, Dr. Aurelio, lessons learned.
Yes, well, there are plenty of lessons learned from what has happened in Haiti as well as here in the recent earthquake in Chile. First thing, we have to understand the phenomenon, meaning the earthquakes. Second, their hazards. And thirdly, if we understand the phenomenon and the hazards they bring, then we will be able to know how to live with them.
Exactly. Thank you very much. It looks like it's something we can't avoid, so we might as well be prepared.
Thank
you very much, Dr. Aurelio. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please ask coffee from them. Ask them for coffee. So